On today's episode, we talk nothing but trades. The Cubs have made a couple free agent moves, but what could they do in the trade market? And if so, should they make a deal? We discuss that and preview some of the players they could target. We're in a post Christmas, pre New Year's mode right now.
Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cubs alongside Sam Olber. I'm Matt Cozy. Pleased to be with you for a Tuesday episode whenever and wherever you may be listening. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Sam and I are lifelong fans, taking our passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. Well, the Cubs have made, I think by my count, 6 free agent additions, including bringing back Drew Smiley, if you include him in that bucket. And the free agent market still has plenty of players left, but as we discussed prior to the Christmas break, the names aren't exactly eye-popping. And so on today's show, we're going to explore the trade market for really the first time. Sam, you're going to have some different digs moving forward, so I'm going to enjoy this from my side of the glass, and maybe some of these players that we discussed will have new digs as well.
Yeah, I don't want to be the Grinch during this episode, but a lot of these deals, I think the Cubs, I think it's important to paint the picture of where the Cubs are at, Matt, before we get into this in terms of trades, because I feel like one of the reasons I am not satisfied with this free agent offseason for the Cubs, I'm not angry at it, but I'm not thrilled by it, is because I did not expect the Cubs to make any big needle-moving trades, because they're in a position with their farm system. Their farm system is still in its baby phase, and guys like PCA, Canario, Davis, it's endless. Horton, Brown, Wicks, Killian, they are such unknowns going forward. And I understand the counterpoint is, well, Sam, they're unknowns, meaning what if they're really bad this year and their value plummets? It would make more sense than to trade them ASAP. But that's looking at it from a pessimistic point of view. Jed Hoyer has gambled on these guys. This is his project that he's working on. I don't foresee him making any big trades with some of these guys that he really likes in it until there's a better picture painted of where this Cubs team is headed and where they're at in their window. Now, some trades I am not opposed of that I think the Cubs would explore would be something along the lines, fringe moves, Madrigal, Velasquez, maybe one of the pitchers for somebody that could help at third or provide a little pop to help Mervis at first, something along those lines. But, and we're going to get into it here. I just think that because of where they're at in this quote unquote rebuild, the move this year, this offseason, was to really, if you were going to be serious about winning, it was to add as many free agents as possible to help the big league team and let these young guys continue to grow in the lower systems.
So you feel like it's a matter of Jed as the architect of his own team now in the Jed Hoyer era is reluctant to part ways with some of these players that now have been brought up in the system? Or is it a matter of these other franchises don't value the players as highly, so it's not even going to be a suitable return?
So it's both of those.
Okay.
And the additional is they're not one move away from competing for a championship. And so, and we if you want, we could just transition this right into the Devers conversation. Adding a guy like him would be awesome, and I would love it. And you would sign him to an extension. So even though you wouldn't be ready to win the World Series this year or next, if you have him for 5, 6, 7 years, one of those, at some point, the window's going to open. So I think it's a combination of those 3 things. Number one, still not knowing exactly what he has in some of these guys. Look, PCA at this time last year was virtually an unknown in terms of the top 100.
He was.
And now he's in the top 30. So I think it's that. Plus, because they're such a relatively unknown, other organizations asking for 3, 4, 5 of them, where Hoyer, feels like he'd be paying, 300 cents on the dollar for a guy if he gives up PCA and Alcantara. And then the third would be, why rush a deal with these guys when we're not winning the World Series this year, most likely regardless?
Yeah, not winning the World Series, but as the Zips projections even said, one more star player, and this team's in the thick of the division race, if not more.
Yeah, I agree. I understand that.
We are going to talk Devers here in a minute or two, and I'm excited to talk about.
Clap back at me, baby! It's the holidays.
There's my clap. I'm excited to visualize him in Cubby Blue, and I'm trying to read between the lines a bit and forecast what the Cubs could be, not only in 2023, but also beyond. You know why? Because that's what they did when Dansby Swanson was in that room in Atlanta, Georgia.
Right.
I have this great quote right here, and also a little nugget, and I don't mean chicken. Sahadev Sharma, in one of his stories about the Swanson signing, recalled that when Lester was in the meetings in December of 14, Theo and Jed, in their presentation, put up lineups on the screen that had players in future free agencies, including Jason Hayward, which eventually happened.
Wow.
And so who's to say that, in the Swanson pitch, hey, let's get wild. You know who's going to bat third? Ohtani. Or here's another variation, because I'm not going to play fantasy baseball, but okay, here's also a variation. Swanson fourth, Devers third. Or hey, at the top of our rotation, I know there's a couple more pitchers hitting the market in a couple more years, but
yeah,
the Lester Hayward story was definitely something that drew my attention.
Sure.
And I had this Swanson quote for you about the pitch. He said, obviously, I can't go into detail about all of that. That's not my job. But the Cubs definitely have a clear plan for what they want to do, the types of people, the types of players that they want to bring on board. I feel like the first step is fully building a winning culture. You've got to show everybody that you want to win and that you're going to win. Then people really start to buy into that vision. They definitely have plans in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a really cool quote. And yeah, as unrealistic as it seems to make a trade or even to sign a Devers or Ohtani next offseason, or I think Julio Urias is available next winter too, Dodgers lefty. That's what they did in their pitch. And so it's interesting to kind of balance all this with what they could do. All that to say, though, Devers, etc., is, as of right now, without an extension or rental. We're not minimizing their impact they could have, but to only have them for 1 year, that would be hard to fathom. Whereas why I could see more of like a Phillies or a Padres, Dodgers getting in on his market. But because this is a baseball show, a Cubs show, we're going to give you some trade proposals anyway. And we're going to see what a Devers trade or think about what that could look like coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every pro and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. They've got it all at betonline.net. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Sam, do you have guesses on who the favorites are to win the World Series right now, according to BetOnline? AL and NL.
Yeah. Ooh, great question. Let's say I'll say the Yankees and Houston in the AL.
Okay. You're right.
And then in the NL, I'll say San Diego and the Mets. Mets and San
Wow,
Diego, yeah.
you're really good. And yeah, it's overall, it's Astros still the favorite, and the Mets the second favorite. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online where the game starts. Welcome back in to Locked On Cubs. Thanks for making us your first listen every day as we are in New Year's week here, final week of 2022. As weird as that sounds to me, as I
Wow.
say it out loud. So, Sam, last week, ESPN reported that the Red Sox and Rafael Devers are, quote, galaxies apart in contract negotiations.
Yep.
And the current
Hey,
expectation.
we've
What?
heard that before. We've heard that before, huh?
Yeah. And the expectation is that he's going to hit the free agent market, especially given the current state of contract talk. So, given that, plus the Red Sox organization in a weird spot, regardless, hard to see them not trading Devers to help the team maximize their own organization. Devers in 2022, slash line of 296, 358, 521, with 27 home runs, 42 doubles, 88 runs batted in. And this is a player that's entering his seventh year, and he's really done it at a high level ever since he debuted.
Yeah, and I just want to circle back to what you said in the first before the break.
Please do.
I agree with everything you said there.
Thank you.
I do think the Cubs have a clear plan. Where I differ is I don't think trading for Rafael Devers in 2022 is a part of that plan. I think they have a very clear plan, and maybe it is acquiring Devers in free agency. We don't know that.
Yeah.
But as you'll flash up here in a second, I just don't think at this point trading for somebody that you know what it's a lot like. Just to make a quick football parallel, it'd be a similar trade to the Khalil Mack deal.
Okay.
And that almost worked for the Bears, but I think the Bears were a little bit ahead of where the Cubs were at. Where that year they won 12 games, and we all know they missed 86 field goals. But I just think that because I just mean that Mack they had to trade for Mack and then sign him to that huge extension.
Right.
I just think you wait on it, and let's get into it. Let's get into the proposals here.
Well, if you don't wait, I just have one proposal here that I'm going to flash up here, and it also coincides with the report over the weekend about Chris Sale, because then that got me thinking, parallel to the Mookie Betts of the Dodgers trade, which included David Price and brought that cost down dramatically. So that's what I gave a shot in the trade simulator at Baseball Trade Values. Heard a little bit about this site around the deadline this past summer, but just used it for the first time the other day myself. So I'm putting that up on the screen. And what I have here, and you look at total value on both sides in the green, the Cubs getting Devers and Sale, and the Red Sox getting Brennan Davis, Chris Morel, and Jordan Wick. So I don't want this on the screen the whole time because I guess for the viewer it might be a nuisance. But
it looks like I have a face problem.
Yeah. So come on, don't do that. So these trades don't start with Chris Morel for me. That's a little ridiculous to say, but the fact is he has the most control out of any major leaguer that the Cubs have positionally. And I think if the Cubs are getting a third baseman back, the Red Sox would want that back potentially if Morel does end up at third. And so I have him in both trade packages that I'm going to share today.
Yeah.
So this first one includes him plus 2 top 10 prospects. Okay. I picked Davis and Wicks, but it could have been Alcantara. It could have been Hertz.
Right.
There's variations there.
Yeah.
And you can see that technically, according to the Baseball Trade Values, it's a massive overpay.
Yeah, well, they're wrong. So I could see you're going off the Betts deal, right? That's what made you because Betts was, if I remember correctly, it was what, Verdugo, Jeter Downs, and another prospect.
Right. You're right.
for David Price and Mookie Betts. And Mookie Betts is a better player than Rafael Devers. And how did Mookie Betts have one year left on his deal at that time, or was it 2? I don't recall.
I think it was the 1 as well.
Yeah, your logic's brilliant. I just don't see the Red Sox trading him for those guys. If I'm the Cubs, if you offer that deal to me right now as a Chicago Cub, I do it.
Because look at Sale as a -13.
Yeah, that's
so even without him, Devers is a 37 value, which is still an overpay.
I think I'm not familiar with this site. I think they're really considering, like, I think it's about dollars. So it feels like Sale's value to his contract. Like how can Devers be a 37 and Morel be a 28?
You think it should be a bigger gap?
Of course. Well, of course.
Yeah.
Did you read the numbers? I think it's just because of finances, right? That's got to be why.
Well, and Sales hasn't pitched.
Right. Sale's a -13. He's on a big contract, whereas Wicks hasn't pitched yet. So that's the value aspect of it. Look, I would do that trade if I were the Cubs because I feel like, if I'm only giving up Brennan Davis and Wicks in terms of high prospects that are somewhat unknown to get a guy like Devers, I would do that.
That's right.
I just think the Red Sox would not do that. I think it costs more. I don't think the Red Sox trade Devers without PCA being involved. I'd be shocked.
Shocked. And do you trade even Brennan Davis and Jordan Wicks for 1 year of Devers?
Yes.
You could keep circling around. Oh, you would do that?
Yeah. I don't.
That's good.
I
Devers
think
would immediately hit third and play third, 162.
Yeah, well, and I don't think the Cubs would make a trade like that without getting the okay to extend them beforehand. But I just think Boston would. I think that deal. Forget Sale for a second. I think that deal, when you look at Devers' value, starts and ends with the Cubs' #1 prospect.
Okay.
And then I think they negotiate down to, all right, give us PCA and Alcantara. And Jed says no. And then he says, all right, fine. Then give me PCA, one of the pitchers, and Canario. I just think you give a lot. I could be wrong. I mean, I just think that was a bad trade by Boston with the Dodgers. I don't think they're gonna make the same mistake.
It was a bad trade, and they've earned the right to ask for a big return.
Yeah, I just don't think they're gonna make
for
the
a
same
star
mistake.
player.
I think the Sales thing's creative. I think he'd help the Cubs, even though he hasn't pitched much. And look, the trade you posted, sign me up for that. I mean, all day and twice on Sunday. I just don't think Boston does that.
Do you think any thoughts outside in terms of Sale, who's going to be 34 in March with 2 more years left on his deal? He's barely pitched the last 3 years. Any thoughts on them trying to acquire him separately, or?
Yeah, if Boston were to eat a large portion of the salary, absolutely.
Because that could be maybe even a 1-for-1 deal with somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
I mean, if you could, it would all depend with a big contract like that. It all depends on the financial aspect of it. All right, are we going to take his entire salary from you? Then we're not going to give you anything.
Right.
Then it's just a trade for cash considerations, which the Cubs wouldn't do because we pretend that we're Minnesota. And then, so it's like, all right, well, you know what? We'll take half his salary and we'll throw in, our 16th ranked guy. Yeah. Right. All right. Something because, again, I've talked about it on this show a lot. The Cubs right now are in search of ceiling raisers.
Sure.
Chris Sale is a massive ceiling raiser despite his massive, massive risk that's attached to him right now.
Okay, so I got one more proposal, and that is down south with the Miami Marlins. And,
no, thank you.
And we're going to look at that project, that package.
I haven't seen the trade yet.
Coming up next. Welcome back into Locked On Cubs.
I'm Matt Cozy.
This is a podcast. I'm not sure why I say that every time, but just to keep everybody cool, I'm going to keep doing those intros. And Player X is somebody that the Cubs have not acquired for their pitching staff, Sam. And could Player X be right-hander Pablo Lopez in your mind?
No.
You don't think so?
No. I really hope not.
So you're not that strong on him?
I don't think he really player X in the pitching staff's the guy that's supposed to
An
strike out
ace.
200 guys a year.
Yeah, he struck out 174 in 180 innings in 2022.
Yeah, that's not bad.
3.75 ERA, 1.17 WHIP.
Well, the thing about him is, why don't we, it'd be great instead of trading for him, we could just sign Tyone. Oh wait,
Oh boy. Okay. Well,
now
I'm glad
let's see
I
the
got
trade.
you
Let's see
going
it.
with that. Also, the Marlins have a third baseman that I've seen a little bit of chatter.
Brian Anderson?
No, he's a free agent actually.
Oh,
Yeah, no one's picking him up. Joey Wendle, 32.
oh, I liked Joey Wendle.
Yeah, 30. Oh, Wendell, excuse me. 32-year-old
Yeah.
left-handed hitter. Didn't hit well last year in 100 games.
Not at all.
But was an all-star with the Rays in 21.
No, he can hit a little bit.
And he's a lower on base guy, but low strikeouts and
Yeah, he could hit.
versatile around the field and could probably hold down most of your games at third. So here's the deal that I have. It's a unique one because I have 3 major league players going back to the Marlins, and the values are pretty close. So I have Lopez and Wendell to the Cubs, and Adbert Alzolay, Nick Madrigal, and Chris Morel headed to the Marlins. Your thoughts?
This is a really well done trade.
Thank you.
Um,
Might have to tweet this one after the program.
So here's my thing. I don't see the need to get Lopez.
Interesting.
Which is
Who has a
why
really high value, by the way, on this site.
Yeah, his contract must be. Let's look.
He's not a free agent until after 24.
Yeah, and what is he getting paid? Is he on arbitration?
Yeah.
Well, that's why.
Right. You don't see a need to get him.
I just don't see the need with him as the team. Like where does he slot in? So you're trading all these guys who aren't great, by the way, to boot Hendricks or Smiley for Lopez. Is that a tremendous upgrade here? As the trade is in a vacuum, I think I'd do it if I were the Cubs, just in a vacuum. It wouldn't get me that excited. I don't know what Wendell does at third. I got to look at his numbers more. But I think both teams would explore this. The key piece for the Marlins, would be Alzolay and Morel, because there's a real upside there. There's especially with Alzolay. Madrigal would just at this point, a lot of people, by the way, on our show, and I love everybody on our show, is really still on the Madrigal train, and maybe I just didn't give him enough time.
Are we missing something?
Time will tell. Yeah,
time will tell. He's not going to be on the team.
For the guy to have optimal value, he has to hit at least 300 because he doesn't walk and he doesn't hit for power. And the Cubs have plenty of contact guys on the team, so I just don't really see much of his value to them,
right?
Especially with Swanson now. But maybe I'll regret saying that. Yeah, that's an interesting trade. I think that's a more realistic one than the Devers one. Maybe Jed would pull the trigger on that. Maybe he says, you know what, it's just not worth it. What if Morel turns into a stud and I'm getting two guys that are major floor raisers? And, I guess you could possibly say that Lopez is a ceiling raiser, but I'm not sure. Maybe you think more highly of him than I.
I do, because you asked the question about being a tremendous upgrade from Hendricks or Smiley, and I'd have to, go to Merriam-Webster for the tremendous definition, but he would be no doubt an upgrade over those guys. If you cherry pick those two, I don't think it's even close. Respectfully to Smiley and Hendricks, Pablo Lopez would no doubt, undoubtedly,
I agree.
without question, ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, he's
definitely an upgrade. Thank you.
He's definitely an upgrade. I'm not denying that. Is how big of an upgrade is he?
Sure.
28-31 in his career.
Let's make some trades.
3.94 ERA. His best. I'm looking at his best year, 2021, 5-5 with a 3.07
the win-loss record doesn't matter, player. Come on.
It's just 102 innings. Last year he was very solid. 180 innings, 3.75 ERA, 3.71 FIP. You want to know what's funny? Smiley was probably just as good.
Yeah, you got a good point. You got a
No,
good point
I'm
there.
just saying, I agree with you. Lopez is
What could
better than
Lopez become an ace?
well, yes, exactly. He's 26 years old. He's a significantly better asset than Smiley and Hendricks. My point is he worth bringing back, trading a Morel and
Nope.
an Alzolay
Mhm.
for what could just be more of what you're getting? I don't know. I don't get paid to make these decisions. I just get paid to talk about them. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting. I thought both were very good trade propositions on your part. My final take would be the first one I just don't see as realistic for Boston. The second one is a realistic trade. Chime in, comment, give us some trade offers. I'm moving tomorrow, but Matt's free. Maybe he'll reply.
Be sure to subscribe to Locked On Cubs on YouTube. As of this airtime, we are just a handful away from 2,000 subscribers, so you can help us with that push if that's still the case as you're listening or watching. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your pods on the audio side. And yeah, definitely leave a comment about trades, what you think of those two, plus any other realistic players or any possible available players as well. Thanks for making.
And this will
Oh,
be sorry, I just want to make a quick announcement.
oh yeah, please
This will
do.
be the last episode I ever record from this
I
room.
know.
So all the jail comments, all the background comments will no longer be a thing. I'll forever remember this place as all right, move on.
And we will be scouting out recording locations at Sam's new place later this week. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Now make Locked On Sports Today your second listen. Host Peter Bukowski brings you the biggest stories from around the sports world in 20 minutes flat. Get the analysis and opinions before anyone else does with Locked On's local and national experts and insiders. Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. This has been Locked On Cubs, a trade possibility edition. Last episode for Sam over in those digs. We'll see what the future brings. He's Sam Olber. I'm Matt Cozy. This is Locked On Cubs.